Hello and welcome to Friday's Granada Reports. On the programme this evening, rest in peace, Angel. Flowers for Ava, aged just 12, stabbed to death in a city centre, busy after a Christmas light switch on.
She hasn't lived long in life, and her life to be taken away like this, it's just scary. When you've got kids as well, you become so frightened for your kids.
And I'm at a food and drink distribution centre in Bury, assessing the challenges facing the supply chain and asking, what does that mean for you at home?
First tonight, a 12-year-old girl has been stabbed to death yards from where hundreds had gathered to see Liverpool's Christmas tree lights switched on. Police say Ava White suffered catastrophic injuries as they questioned 4 teenage boys about what officers say was an argument that ended in the schoolgirl's killing. Well, our correspondent Rob Smith is at the scene for us tonight. Rob.
What should have been a happy night for families, what should have been a happy night for children of all ages watching those lights twinkle into life ended in something horrific, no distance at all from where I'm standing. Those who knew Ava, those who taught Ava, say she was a caring, bright and popular girl. Tonight her family are going through something no family should ever go through. Investigators are trying to figure out who did this and why. Searching a city centre for evidence on the murder of a 12-year-old girl killed after a Christmas light switch on. Ava White was out with friends in Liverpool last night when they got into an argument just before 20 to 9. It ended, police say, with her being stabbed. A member of the public rushed to give first aid. Medics did everything possible. She couldn't be saved.
It's devastating for the family, and I think many people who have 12, 13-year-olds will be can't believe that's happened.
A huge chunk of Liverpool's shopping streets was sealed off by detectives convinced key evidence was left behind. Working out why the attack happened will take time, officers say, as they're speaking to witnesses who are children. It's a slow and gentle process. Ava's school today offered support to fellow pupils. The head of Notre Dame Catholic College in Everton paid tribute. Ava was a much-loved, valued and unique member of the Notre Dame family. She was an incredibly popular girl with a fantastic group of friends. Our deepest thoughts and prayers go out to Ava's family and friends and all those affected by this utterly tragic event. Flowers and messages left yards from where Ava was attacked came from a stream of shocked and horrified shoppers. The bargains they came hunting for, suddenly so unimportant. The life ended here was ended on White Ribbon Day, part of a campaign to stop violence against women and girls.
Such a waste too, many families, their lives are destroyed now because of this.
I know.
It's just very, very sad.
Christmas light switch on, big city, lots of people around. What's going on? It's terrible.
She hasn't lived long in life, and her life to be taken away like this, it's just scary. When you've got kids as well, you become so frightened for your kids.
Police say it'll take time to reopen swathes of this city centre. They have to be sure they've found every clue. 4 teenage boys aged 13 to 15 are being questioned on suspicion of murder. Rob Smith, ITV News, Liverpool.
And Rob, among the tributes to Ava, one from the peace campaigner Colin Parry.
Yeah, Ava was awarded a Peace Ambassador Award back in 2019 from the Tim Parry Jonathan Ball Peace Foundation. It works to promote conflict resolution around the world. It was created in memory of the 2 children killed in the Warrington bombing. It goes into primary schools and it gives children the skills they will need for high school to deal with difficult situations, to think differently in those, to develop emotional intelligence, to try and deal with those situations in a much, much better way. I spoke to Colin Parry tonight. He said that they are actually going back into Ava's old primary school on Monday. You can only imagine what that's going to feel like for everyone involved.
Rob Smith in Liverpool City Centre, thank you. In this evening's other news, a judge has ruled the brother of Salman Abedi will be arrested and brought to the Manchester Arena inquiry to give evidence if he comes back to the UK. Ismail Abedi had been ordered to attend the public inquiry into the bombing, but left the country in August and hasn't returned. Bereaved families have called him a coward for refusing to attend. Manchester United appear to be a step closer to making Ralph Rangnick their new manager. It's believed they've agreed terms with his current club, Lokomotiv Moscow, and he's now expected to take charge at Old Trafford for the rest of the season. His pressing style of play has been a big influence on Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp, who says Rangnick's arrival is not good news for other teams.
Unfortunately, a good coach is coming to England, so that's how it is to Manchester United. So Ralf is obviously a really experienced manager. United will be organised. We should realise that, and that's obviously not good news for other teams.
That's the news here so far today. Let's go live now to Gamal, who's out and about for us tonight. Gamal.
Anne, thank you very much. Well, a very good evening to you at home from Dunster's Farm in Bury. Tonight, we are investigating the pressures on our supply chain and what that could mean for all of us this Christmas and beyond. Now, today is, of course, Black Friday, and retailers across the region have been trying to separate customers from their cash. Now, the challenges facing the sector and others like it might not be so obvious at first glance, but you may have seen the occasional empty shelf at the supermarket, or maybe just had that niggling feeling that prices are on the rise. Well, along with Bury, we've been out and about in Chester, gauging the mood of people there and what they think about the rise in prices.
Well, it is worrying because, as you say, Christmas is an expensive time of year anyway, so you do tend to worry more, being able to get stock availability, things like that.
I wonder where we're going to end up. Everything's going up, the food, just basic things like milk, bread, it's nothing luxurious.
Pyjamas used to be like £7, but now they're like going up to 15. Everything's just doubling by price, it seems.
Well, this food and drink distribution centre relies on food stock coming in and then going out again. And really, that's become a struggle in recent times. We'll be hearing from one of the bosses here in a moment. But first, our correspondent Rachel Townsend has been to meet a farmer in Lancashire. He fears customers will have to pay more for his products.
They're devoured in homes across the country. Boiled, mashed, roasted or fried, the potato is one of our staple foods. And for over 15 years, Filed Fresh and Fabulous near Preston has been growing and supplying them to homes and takeaways across the UK.
We are seeing challenges both with Brexit, the pandemic and the supply chain crisis that's sort of kicked off.
Their CEO is Simon Lever. He's juggling upheaval in many quarters. Supply chain issues mean packaging and machine parts can be hard to get hold of, but that's not all.
We're seeing huge inflation in costs of growing potatoes, especially for this next season coming. We're seeing the cost of seed and the availability of seed change. We're all wanting to keep our prices down as much as we can so that the customer doesn't feel the effect. But I am concerned that we will start to see some of these prices starting to affect consumers.
Post-Brexit, they've had labour shortages. They currently have a 10% vacancy rate. Previously, it was 0.
We are working really hard to address the concerns that our employees have. So we're looking really closely at work-life balance, and we need to make sure that we reward people for working unsociable hours.
Around 50% of the workforce are from outside the UK. Radek Blocek from the Czech Republic is one of them, taking on the job mid-pandemic.
In the beginning, people don't have much clue what's really going on here. But after some time, when you learn things of processing potatoes and how difficult it is, you are quite amazed.
Well, they grow around 800 acres of their own potatoes across the northwest. And right here, they peel around 1,000 tonnes every week. But like farms across the country, it has been impossible for them to escape the disruption affecting the whole market. For now, though, the company is very much committed to the future with a biogas plant on site. Peelings are used to make methane, which help produce enough electricity to power the factory and homes in the local area.
The environment's really a big priority for us. It's not only the electricity that we generate, but the digestate that we produce from the tank also goes back on the land the next year to grow the next year's crops as fertiliser.
The ethos here is to waste nothing and to nurture produce from the field to the fork. They hope their commitment to sustainability will help ensure potato farming and production here in Lancashire can continue for generations to come. Rachel Townsend, ITV News, Nipweston.
Yeah, Rachel there, very much painting a picture of what the situation is like for one potato farmer in Lancashire. Well, joining me now is Hannah Barlow, who's the Managing Director here. Hannah, thank you very much for being so accommodating. On the face of it, you've got lots of products here, but what has the last year been like for your business?
It's been so challenging. The lockdowns meant that the majority of our customers had to close. So around about 95% of our customers, being whether that's schools or care places or leisure and hospitality, they weren't there. So our business really suffered. However, on the flip side of that, the schools from September onwards have really come back, and that's great for our business and for our staff and our team here. However, the supply chain is struggling. It's really struggling to keep up. Everyone is facing the same problems, whether that's, HGV driver shortage, or whether it's sickness and illness within the staff teams, or just general challenge in recruiting, plus prices rising, energy prices rising. We're all facing the same thing, and actually what it's causing is a real strain on the entire chain.
Yes, so many things that you're weighing up, Hannah. And as you look towards Christmas and as you look towards 2022, what worries you?
That it's going to continue. I don't really see when this is going to stop. It is, it's carrying on day after day. We're seeing it constantly in our line of work.
If you were across the table from a government policymaker right now and you were able to express your fears, your concerns, and what you'd like government to do to help businesses like yours, what would you say to them?
Yeah, the whole supply chain really does need more support with the shortage of drivers. It really is crippling businesses right now. Secondly, we've been promised business rates relief in the wholesale sector. They have not arrived yet, and we need those. We need them quick. And I think thirdly, in COVID, our industry as wholesalers had to shout so loud to be heard, and we now do not want to be forgotten. Wholesalers play such a vitally important role in making sure people get food, and we cannot be forgotten again.
And just so we're clear, it's not like you're going to completely run out of stock, is it? You're still going to be able to serve your customers.
Our suppliers are really close to us and they communicate with us really well, and we're all working as hard as we can. People are working 24 hours a day to make sure people get what they need and that there's food on the table. But unfortunately, that is becoming more and more challenging every day.
And just finally, very briefly, Hannah, how are you? A challenging year and potentially another challenging year ahead for you and your business?
Absolutely. It's been, historic for everyone, hasn't it? The whole of the coronavirus has really challenged every business person. But within our sector, it's really hit us hard. We are optimistic for the future. We're building back and we're really trying our very best, and our team are working so hard. We're so proud of them. But it is uncertain. And we don't know when these issues and problems we're having are ever going to stop.
Yeah, uncertainty is a word. Hannah, thank you very much for your time. I'll leave you to wrap up for the evening. Thank you very much. Well, Hannah, they're painting a picture of what the situation is like at this distribution centre here in Bury. Now, one of the issues we've been hearing time and again has been the lack of lorry drivers. The Road Haulage Association says there is currently a shortage of around 80,000 HGV drivers, and last year nearly 40,000 HGV driver tests were cancelled due to the pandemic. Well, our correspondent Mel Barham reports from one haulage firm in Chester.
Keeping the wheels of the supply chain turning has been increasingly difficult, with HGV drivers themselves in such short supply. Brexit, tax changes and the pandemic have exacerbated a long-running problem, which has already seen many leave the profession due to long hours, working conditions and a decline in pay. The result has been widespread disruption, empty shelves and higher prices.
Driving's like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it.
Chris has been driving HGVs for 20 years.
I just think it's been a perfect storm. The wages were low for so long and the standards basically were just bad. It was the person with the name on the wagon that was making the money at the time. And the average age of HGV drivers is about 55 now. So they're all left and no new people want to come in because they want a quality of life.
Despite a temporary visa scheme brought in by the government, the industry says there's little sign of improvement, with 20,000 fewer HGV drivers than last year, and 42% of logistics businesses reporting very severe problems in recruiting. Here at this food distribution firm in Chester, their drivers aren't doing long overnight shifts, and they have managed to retain their staff, but they've had to raise drivers' pay by 42% and offer retention bonuses. They've also made the decision to train existing drivers up, fast-tracking them through their HGV tests to beat delivery shortages.
Traditionally, what we would do probably is take on an experienced driver from somewhere else, and we would take them on with years' worth of experience of, being an HGV driver. They're big beasts. They take a while to learn. What we're having to do now is recruit and train people from scratch to become lorry drivers for the future.
Andrew is one of those on course to get his licence in January, having started here in July as a van driver.
It's very good money at the moment. It's definitely a big attraction, which I'm quite surprised there's a shortage of drivers, which you keep seeing in the news at the moment, when the financial rewards are quite good at the moment.
But it's not just about getting more people into the industry, it's about retaining that workforce too.
It's not just about pay, it's about conditions as well. We have seen pay massively increase, but it's also things like driver welfare facilities. And so we're calling on government to deliver on their promise to deliver an extra 1,400 driving lorry parking spaces across the UK.
But that and training more drivers up will take time. And as Christmas approaches, that leaves businesses now still struggling to meet demand and consumers facing shortages and potential price rises as a consequence. Mel Barham, ITV News, Chester.
Well, with me now are Graham Dixon from the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce and John Bowler of Bowler's Specialist Haulage in Stockport. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. John, if I could firstly start with you. Nationally, we are short of some 80,000 HGV drivers. How did we get to this point?
I think it's a list of a number of things. Most recently with the pandemic and COVID, that's changed right through from initially the driver tests being knocked on the head for a good 18 months near enough, and then that mixed in with the amount of drivers that were ending their career, if you like, due to age and ill health and things like that. So it's been quite a knock-on effect within the industry as a whole.
So what's the last year been like for you and your business?
It's been very difficult times, very uncertain times. Along with the what's a knock-on effect is the low emission zone coming on in Manchester, which is our local area. So that's been a further investment into a knock on what was a setback with the pandemic.
Graham, this is clearly a system under a lot of pressure now. It's creating a lot of bottlenecks. Ultimately, what does that mean for our viewers back home?
The problem is going to be certain items might not be on the shelves, but there's always going to be alternatives that will be there. The supply chain is having to look at what's urgent, what's most important, what has to happen, and they are happening. They've just got to judge it right and just make sure that everyone gets service to a certain level.
And a lot of our viewers will be asking the question, well, what does this mean for Christmas? What does this mean for 2022? Are they going to be seeing empty shelves? We've already seen a few empty shelves, I think, if we're honest with ourselves. We go to our local supermarkets and there is a shortage of goods out there.
There's definitely a shortage. It stems from months and, a long time ago with supplies coming into the UK, containers being held up. But it's not a case of the shelves are going to be empty. You will probably just see less of certain things. You will see some alternatives there. So your first choice may not be there, but your second choice will be. So it's not a panic station situation.
John, you touched on it in your first answer. One of the issues that your business is facing is that the average retirement age or the average driver in your line of work is 55 years old. Many of them are off to pass as new. They're looking to retire, do new professions, do something else completely different. And you need to get younger drivers into the business. How is that looking? What is the outlook like for next year?
I think it's very difficult for a new driver coming into the industry because new drivers are coming in, they're getting rushed through a test, and they're getting rushed through a CPC course, and they're expected to go out and do a similar standard of work to someone that's been doing the job for in excess of 30 to 40 years. It's very difficult to have to step into them shoes for younger drivers especially.
Are you hopeful about next year? Do you think things will settle eventually, or will it take a bit more time?
I think it'll take a bit more time. I know us personally, we do a lot of in-house training and try and bring a lot of new recruits in. We have a lot of younger staff as well as some older staff, so it's quite a nice mixed bag. whereas I know a lot of other hauliers are struggling with certain aspects of different age groups and trying to bring new drivers in and get them up to a similar standard of work.
Graham, with shopping for Christmas and the New Year, I guess if you'd advise people to go out and look to shop a little bit earlier for Christmas supplies in products, that might cause a problem of its own. That might mean people all buying things at the same time, even though it is earlier.
I would say just be normal, just treat it like a normal year. If there is something individually, sort of specific item that you particularly want, then it would be good just to look around and see where it's available at and try and get it sooner rather than later. But if it's just general groceries, etc., there's absolutely no reason to panic. They will still be there on the shelves. Just be normal, and then we don't have that wipe-out situation that we saw previously.
And a bit more on the outlook for next year. Reports that inflation is going to go up to 5%. That's going to hurt all of us.
Absolutely. We've got the national living wage going up by 6.6% in April next year. That has a knock-on effect for everyone in employment. You have to keep that differential between all the different pay rates in employment. So there's going to be a huge impact on business costs, and that will come through to inflation, and then future pay claims after that based on the inflation. So it has a massive knock-on effect.
And John, I asked Hannah the question, I'll ask you the question. If you were across the table from government policymakers, what would you say to them? How can they help you, others in your line of work?
I think a little bit of help just to push the sort of tests on and try and bring a bit more advertisement for newer people coming into the industry. The driver shortage is the initial problem, so the only way to resolve that is to get some more drivers in.
Yeah, very interesting conversation. John, Graham, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts and your pearls of wisdom too. Thank you. Well, we invited the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, to join us on tonight's programme, but he was unavailable. The government says it has taken 32 actions to tackle the lorry driver shortage, something Mr Shapps told us about when he came into our newsroom last week.
From being able to actually get the licence faster, administratively speaking, right through to making it more attractive. And we've got obviously much higher salaries for HGV drivers. I'm pleased to report people are coming forward. We've seen now the retailers saying they're not expecting any shortages at Christmas. I know that was a story a month or two back. I know we had a panic about fuel. That's all running much more smoothly now. By the way, it's an international problem. Coming out of coronavirus, every economy is struggling with its supply chains. And the UK's been growing faster than most. In fact, the fastest in the G7, I think, joint fastest. So the strains here have been particularly hard.
How long on this? Well, let's hear finally this evening from that endpoint destination, the point where food hits our plates. Lockdowns and enforced enclosures have meant the hospitality industry has already been hit hard by COVID-19. While things have reopened, they say we are still not out of the woods. Victoria Grimes has been to meet a restaurant owner in Liverpool and some of those who supply the industry to find out what they think the future has in store.
Lobster's gone up, yeah, but lobster always goes up anyway, leading towards Christmas. At the moment, lobster is now at the price it was last Christmas. So yeah, it has gone up in price.
For the last 40 years, Nick Jesse's been supplying fish to the hospitality industry in the northwest, the third generation of his family to do so. But since Brexit, rising operating costs and shortages of fresh catch have caused him a headache.
The less they catch, the more money it makes, and everyone's bidding and bidding on it. The prices are going up and up and up. But the restaurants, they all want the variety to put on the menus. Sometimes we don't have it, or we do have it, but the price is through the roof. We do a lot of fish and chip trade. Fish had gone up by 70%, 80% some weeks. That's a massive increase. Yeah, and we work on buttons, to be honest with you, to keep the trade going. But now we can't. We've got to increase our prices. So everyone's got to get used to the price of fresh fish will never be cheap.
Over at Hogan's Butchers in Huyton, it's a similar story.
This is a prime example of how meat prices have actually gone up. And these lambs that we normally pitch out at this time of year, around £120 a piece, this morning they're £160 a piece. A leg of lamb that comes off these animals, which is normally about £25 maximum, is now more like £40.
And there's only so long they can take the financial hammer.
Someone's got to cover those costs. Real shoulder some of it, and so will the restaurateurs, but it's got to be passed on eventually. Unfortunately, it's one of the busiest months of the year.
And it's those costs and shortages which are worrying restaurant owners like Paul Askew at the Art School.
Things like turbot and John Dory and prime fish, as we think of them, incredibly scarce or impossibly expensive, so we can't put them on the menu. And then, of course, we've got the delights of trying to import things like wine, olive oil, things from the continent that we would normally just pick up the phone, oh yes, well, they'll be with you tomorrow. Now, you just don't know whether that's going to happen or not. In fact, we have three pallets stuck at the customs right now. That's our Christmas order, so it's quite worrying.
And it's not just this issue with food supply, is it? Getting enough staff and the right staff as well.
Unfortunately, a combination of COVID and Brexit has meant that we've lost quite a few staff into either other industries or going back home to European countries. Specialist positions that were difficult to fill before the pandemic, we've now got a licence to be able to start interviewing abroad and bringing in staff.
Well, your pastry chef's coming over from Spain, isn't she?
And again, that's taken nearly 7-8 months. And she's not here yet, by the way. So if I'm honest, I think the most difficult part of it was when we've had to close rooms or bars that we couldn't operate, and having lost 18 months worth of revenue and you're trying to climb back up the mountain again. Sometimes it really does feel like you're just surviving and you can't really spread your wings and start to move again, you know.
Yeah, it does very much feel like we've got a very challenging 2022 ahead. Well, that is it from me and the team here at Dunster's Farm in Bury as we've assessed some of the challenges facing the supply chain this winter. Now, while it might feel like Christmas preparations start earlier and earlier every year, that will most likely prove to be the case in 2021, with retailers expecting consumers to get their shopping in early to avoid any kind of disappointment. But I think what is clear and what I've learned this evening is that the overriding message this evening is that less variety doesn't mean empty shelves. And while festive essentials will be available, some of the extras that also tempt us shoppers may not. Back to Anne in the studio. Anne.
Gamal and all your guests in Bury, thank you very much for that. Before I go, just a reminder of our top story tonight. Tributes have been paid to 12-year-old Ava White, stabbed to death in Liverpool city centre. Her school described her as unique and much loved. 4 teenagers are being questioned. I'll update you in our late bulletin after news at 10. Bye-bye.
Now that is brew weather.
And only boiling what she needs.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Big up you, sis.
Hello there. Well, a real taste of winter for us over the next 24 hours, but the good news is it will be pretty short-lived. We're under a multi-pronged attack at the moment: wind, rain, sleet and snow, but the main focus is on winds, and certainly they get very gusty and blustery overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Largely winds 55-65 miles an hour across the region. However, there's an amber warning just nudging into the southwest of our patch, affecting Merseyside, Chester and the Liverpool area, with gusts of 70 miles an hour possible here. And as I say, sleet and snow as well, mainly over the Pennines, but yellow warnings there, and generally a strong wind warning right the way across our patch. It's all down to Storm Arwen, which is moving through the North Sea there. The positioning of it is opening the floodgates to this bitterly cold Arctic blast. Tight isobars there, and that's why it's so windy. So rewinding to the next few hours, it's all downhill overnight. We've got these wintry showers just blowing down through the region, particularly over the Pennines there. Some icy stretches are possible, but things actually improve towards the end of the night, and the wind holds these temperatures up above freezing. You can just see the amber warning clipping into the southwest of our patch. Tomorrow, a bit of a tricky start to the day, especially for Trans-Pennine routes. I wouldn't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to. And still, the wintry showers may fall over the tops of the Pennines throughout the day. By the afternoon, things improve, particularly towards the coast and across the Isle of Man. And numerically, we've got these temperatures of 4 or 5 Celsius at highest, and I use the word loosely. However, it's still going to be pretty breezy tomorrow, maybe 50-mile-an-hour winds or gusts, and so it's actually going to feel more like sub-zero, and it could be one of the coldest nights of the season so far tomorrow night, with more sunshine on Sunday and slightly better temperatures. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
2 sugars, please. Oh, lovely.